Reducing recruitment to violent extremist groups is one of the most complicated endeavors we could possibly engage in.
My own cousin, who lived in Europe, we came to find out, joined ISIS. They managed to recruit him, and he's in their territory, wherever they are. We don't know whether he's alive or dead.
I am a Somali mother who are raising children in Boston. My kids were born in Boston. And there's a lot of fear in the Somali community. We don't want what happened to elsewhere in the United States happen to Boston. We don't want our children joining Al-Shabaab. We don't want them joining any other groups like ISIS.
The problem we're trying to address is extraordinarily complicated because it is local, it's national, and it's international.
It is very complicated. If you forget about everything else, the fact we are talking about law enforcement and communities working together, that's very complex.
What makes things even more complicated, of course, is the fact that we're still scrambling to figure out not only what are the kinds of things that should be involved in countering violent extremism, but more particularly whose responsibility it actually is.
Let's say if I am a new American, 16 years old, Somali, male or female, it doesn't matter, living in Boston, attending one of the Boston public schools. My classmates have been in class since they were in kindergarten, but school was not an option for me in my motherland. What is the first thing I would feel in that classroom? I would be isolated, I would be alienated, I would frustrate, I can't keep up with the classwork. I don't know how to speak fluent English like my classmates do. I cannot pronounce the way they pronounce. So what would I do as a 16-year-old new American? I would automatically feel like this environment, I don't belong to this environment. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna find an environment that I belong to.
A nice place to turn is a place with other people who feel that they themselves have been wronged or marginalized.
Trauma is a factor. With my work with youth and our research, actually, we found that trauma makes youth more vulnerable to all kinds of bad outcomes.
They don't really understand that this is really risky business, that folks who are on the other side of where they're going are dead serious about getting them engaged in lethal activities.
The groups of people who are the most vulnerable to recruitment, the groups of people who are the most vulnerable to becoming radicalized are not from one particular community. They are not from one segment of society. They are from a cross-section.
If you listen to people who will tell you that there is a specific profiling of an individual, you make a grand mistake.
It's the students who try to connect, who want to connect, and don't connect, that are the most vulnerable.
I think one of the obstacles to building effective CVE programming over recent years has been lack of trust, and I completely understand why that might be the case.
There is a huge fear that this is going to stigmatize the community, but more importantly, it's going to stigmatize youth who right now may already feel alienated and lost, and now are going to feel, well, is everyone going to look at me like I'm a terrorist?
The biggest difficulty that we face is finding the middle ground in between the community and the government.
We are competing with people who have the resources, billions of dollars, to convince our kids to provide them a better opportunity. We don't talk about this enough.
When we talk about prevention, we're talking at different levels of prevention. And so are we talking about the kid who is getting on an airplane, or are we talking about how do we work with the younger kids so that they don't become vulnerable?
There's no silver bullet. What works today may not necessarily be what works tomorrow.
With the right amount of enthusiasm, it is something possible to accomplish.
It's all about the local context. It's about finding out what is driving the problem in your own backyard and working with your own local partners to figure out what the most appropriate solution and intervention might actually look like.
As the U.S. Attorney, I've been tasked with really marshaling the efforts of this pilot program.
It's a true partnership about building trust.
I've been a part of experiences where law enforcement has come together with religious groups.
You know, the government has a role. It can support the institutions run and function, but it is the people who take upon themselves to make a difference.
The approach has to be inclusive. We don't want to take an exclusive approach because it will backfire.
When we talk about prevention and intervention services, we take away some of the stigma.
On prevention side, thinking about putting in place, for example, in schools and in communities, support for youth who have gone through trauma, who may have PTSD, would be a wonderful way to stop this.
Community have to be empowered to lead this initiative, because if a mother is in trouble, she feels comfortable to connect with me.
I would challenge those pastors to come out of the four walls of their sanctuaries and meet the youth where they were.
When someone goes to their place of worship, they want to feel like that they have the opportunity to debate with friends, talk about issues that are on their mind, vent even a little bit, and not be worried that they're being constantly monitored or there's some surveillance going on or there'll be some reporting of whatever ideas they bring into that safe space.
I think we need to do a far better job of inoculating our children from the kinds of messages and narratives that are being pushed out there by extremists in the organizations from which they come.
The more that we can help children when they're younger and help families support those students, the more likely we are to have success.
Youth are embedded in communities, they're born into it, they're raised, community has access to youth that no one else does. So I think they're our greatest gatekeepers in reality, both to getting to the youth, teaching the youth what to do, the right thing, but they are also our greatest resource for prevention. And so I think that this involvement of the community is very important, and I hope it works.
Our goal is really to empower the community to do the work that it needs to do and really to help us to promote public safety.